Selves. She sighed, a hand in her hair. It was the first thing approaching conversation in the past hour. I had begun to feel like a voyeur. The pixels that made up her eyes were following a line of text. From the reflection in her glasses, I could see she had placed my camera feed out of the way. Of course it was for efficiency. Effectively, it was being put in the corner. "You okay?" I ventured to ask. I still move the joystick on my controller periodically. I am distracted and barely notice the incessant silence I hope they conveyed in their taps and clicks. She did not like to be worried over. These nights in were already such a concession. After the blog didn't work, after recorded videos became a chore. Yeah, just frustrated. She removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. It was well after midnight there. My sun hadn't even gone down yet. Our sun, of course, there being only the one, but it was hard to think of it that way. "Want to talk about it?" I asked cautiously. "Not in particular," she replied. It was her habit to be curt. Cutting was not the intention. "You want to call it a night?" I offered, bringing my phone in front of me, putting her between me and the TV. "You are my focus," is what I intended to say by this gesture. "Honestly, yeah, but I've got a few more papers to grade." She did not understand that I was asking if she wanted to end our, for lack of a better word, conversation. I knew she was tired, but I had to ask all the same. "Do you want to—" I began, but immediately regretted it. Of course she didn't want to. "Want to what, babe?" She had gone back to reading, this time without her glasses. I thought of her squinting in the shower, tiny eyes trying so hard to find my face in the steam. I suddenly felt like a kettle that realized it was on a red burner, bubbling already. I said, a slight cough, "the bed thing." "Oh," her eyes were still reading. The prospect didn't even warrant a glance at my tiny face on her screen. "Yeah, sure, if you want." Of course I wanted. Awash in my belly, the want bobbed up and down. Drowning and pulling me inward was how bad I wanted. "You know you don't have to if you don't want to," I said. "I know. You would know if I didn't want to." She stood. "See you on there," she said, closing her laptop lid. The call ending made a sad sigh of tones, and I followed suit. I took off my clothes and laid on my bed. Our bed, of course. She had her bed. This was ours. Always would be. I screwed my eyes shut to shut up the racing thoughts. It wasn't going to work if I couldn't concentrate. I opened the app on my phone and put my earphones in. A smooth voice sent shivers down my spine as it told me to relax, to lay with feet apart and arms flat on the bed. A pulsing sound was low in my ear as the voice told me to envision a place. Meanwhile, I could literally see the place, as in a dream. Soon I was not imagining, and the voice faded away behind me as a door clicked shut. I was standing in a pavilion of sorts on a mountaintop. There was a bed there. The sheets changed from white to gold to black and back again as my mind couldn't make up its mind, as it were. A door appeared on the side opposite me and she stepped through. But she wasn't herself. She was taller and missing the mole on her right cheek. "I made a few edits," she said, watching my gaze. "What do you think?" She posed, turned, and posed again. Gorgeous, of course. I swallowed. If this is what made her feel good, I wanted that. But I wanted the her that my bed, our bed, was familiar with. The her that I had touched last. "Of course," she jokingly echoed. She strode across the room, and her clothes fell away, carried off in the mountain breeze. Why this open space, I wondered? Were we both a bit more exhibitionist than we had ever let on? I was suddenly worried I had somehow made a private setting public somewhere. How was that handled? I knew people could be invited to spectate, but I wasn't sure how. Her hand was on my cheek now. My skin tingled, phantom fingers dragging across my lips. I took a deep, sudden, and shuddering breath. How badly I wanted her touch. I became aware of trickling water nearby. The pulsing had slowly become a throbbing. "I can feel you in my hands," she said with an excited laugh. We hadn't had a chance to use any of this yet. We had entered our biometrics and made ourselves, but that had been weeks ago. I will admit I practiced a few times with pre-programmed scenarios. Senses such as scent and taste were absent, but you could hear their voice, feel their touch. They had yet to refine good pain and bad pain, so it just wasn't an option. For all my practice, it was entirely different with a real person. The hairs on my arms stood on end as she traced her hands downward. "Are you having fun?" she asked. I could only nod. My fingers twitched against the sheets as she laced her fingers through mine and we walked to the bed. I reached out and touched her lips. They stretched into a smile. We realized that we had yet to kiss. In my research, I had read to avoid kissing, but I assumed that was from a psychological standpoint for people who were having fun with strangers, afraid of getting too attached. I told her so and she laughed. "So, pretty woman rules?" It was so nice to hear her laugh. It fueled the flickering flame. We had never been the tickling sort, but it was suddenly so fun. We pinched and bit and kissed all over, exploring each other in a way we hadn't in so long. "Come on," she said. "I feel weird not kissing. You're so good at it." But I immediately knew. My lips felt her lips, and soon so did my tongue. But it was stringent, antiseptic. It was like kissing through cellophane. Of course, that would have its charm, but in that moment, ghosts of intimacies past ran through me. I knew what her breath tasted like. My nose knew the stink of her and reveled in it. Herself was all sounds and pictures. My stomach fell, the swallowing want therein along with it, and left only a melancholy hollow. "What's wrong?" she said, and she pulled her face away from mine. "Is there interference or something? A bad signal?" The program could not, perhaps was specifically made not to, show tears. "I just miss you. A lot," myself said without my meaning to. I meant for it to smile and kiss her again. "I miss you too," she said, and rested her head on my shoulder. I put my arm around her and the hollow seemed to shrink. She sighed. "I wonder if we fall asleep if it will disconnect us." "Are you sure it's okay if we don't, What, have sex?" she said, staring at me with a grin. "It is absolutely okay. You can say sex, you know. We're using a sex app." "I know," I said, a little flustered. I'm teasing," she said. "I like seeing you so, I don't know how to say it, fumbly? Is that a word over there? Because it definitely isn't here." We laughed, but it subsided too quickly. The mountains around us were trapped in a sunny, cloudless noon. I think we were trying to do the same. "You know that it's not easy, right?" she said and sat up. She absentmindedly touched my stomach. "I know the long-distance thing is tough." "It is, but it's just a little tougher when our distance isn't just physical." I sat up now. The want was back, but it had brought back frustration along with it. I wanted to fight. Flight was not an option. I couldn't make myself not say what was inside. "I'm not sure I know. You're so cold all the time. I understand you have things to do, and I know you're not just having fun. You don't have to preamble. Get to it." She stood and her clothes returned. Now there was a jacket and scarf as well, pulled up over her mouth. I walk on eggshells around you all the time. I'm so scared of you just running off." Myself was standing now too, walking towards her. "Can we please not do this on a freaking sex app? We just wasted 2 hours staring at each other." Her voice should have been muffled by the scarf or the fact that she was walking away from me, but it rang clear. "Staring? You barely looked at me." "Oh my God, you're so dramatic. I have my own stuff going on over here." "I literally just said that." "Let me finish," she said and spun around, having reached the edge of the room. "And sometimes that means I don't want you just lurking around. We're thousands of miles apart, but it feels like you're right here, moping, suffocating me, sighing until I have to ask you what's wrong. Sometimes I don't feel like or have the time to pull those particular teeth." She threw her arms up. "I can't be all your happiness. You have to be okay with being alone. Grow up a little." I swallowed, my throat dry and constricted, but my voice rang true as well. "It's late. For you, anyway. We should just talk tomorrow." "Yeah." Herself turned to face the door that had appeared behind her. "Sleep well." The door opened and clicked shut. The sun above faded like a bulb going dark. The pavilion and myself faded to black ether. My eyes opened to find our ceiling, my ceiling, just as I had left it. The throbbing in the headphones dulled, then slowed. It was recommended not to move too quickly, to let your mind readjust to being back in yourself. Apparently, I'd kicked the covers off of the bed. I left them laying. I reached out and grabbed my phone, the app still open. My friends list only showed one name, and beside it, her picture. The green open door beside her information shut, turned red, then gray, and her picture became obscured. My sun had still yet to set. It would still be a while longer. Lingering in the sky, it reminded me of all the time I had left in this day, in this year. I touched the earphones, intending to take them out, but I laid my head back and perused the app instead. "Steady breaths," the voice said, "each one taking me a little further away from here."